controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are ASAP Science here to make things make sense.
Today is our call-in episode, so we have a bunch of audio messages from you freaks.
From yours truly.
It will be from yours. That's from means from us.
Oh, from yours truly.
From yours truly, and we will be, being open, honest, and raw. Some of these questions are tough. Some of them are scientific. Some of them are pop culture. I know what they are. Mitch doesn't.
I'm scared.
We're going to be hitting it hard. Comment corner all day. So there's going to be one episode this week, another next week, and then it's back to the usual science programming. But there is scientific information in a lot of your questions. I've been obsessed with hearing from you all. asapscience.com/chat if you want to be part of the next call-in episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love hearing people's voices. I don't know which questions are being asked, but every now and then I'll check them as people send them, and it's
whereas
fun.
I hear them all. So if you want me to hear your freaky ass questions, then you just gotta let me know.
Yeah. Where do we want to start right away, or we want to catch up on anything, or
what's going on in the world?
Well, what is going on in the world?
It's a weird time. There's lots of snow in Toronto, which I'm obsessed with. LOL Canadian talking about weather. That's all we do. But that's because we have seasons, which are beautiful. Listen to our episode on
seasonal depression.
Yeah. Which I don't have.
Anecdotal. But I know we've talked about vitamin D deficiency, and I was having a rough month, and then I was like, oh, I actually did stop taking vitamin D pills. And then I started taking them, and I actually do feel better now. And I'm like, is it placebo?
It's placebo. It has to be placebo.
But I actually was like, wait, is it working?
No, you're probably placebo is real. Again, listen to our episode on placebo, aka placebo. But I don't think it's what's making you feel that much better, but I still think it's important to take vitamin D throughout the winter. But yeah. I don't think it's like popping an antidepressant.
Okay, we got to go back to an episode on vitamin D soon.
Yeah, placebo.
It's not placebo.
Okay,
There's
now we're in a
so
fight.
much research about the importance of vitamin D.
Yeah, but
it's moods.
Yeah,
and vitamin D deficiency in winter and upper northern climates.
Okay, fine, whatever. Go listen to it. But it's been sunny. I think is what has helped. I still get vitamin D a lot. I find in this winter there's sun
comparatively.
Yeah, it's actually bright. The snow's bright. It's reflecting everywhere. We have a huge snowstorm coming, which I love. Life's good. Okay, should we get into it then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really. It's everything is just tariffs and Trump, and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, me either. None of the questions today are about that, right?
I hope not.
Just happiness and love and joy today.
What's your opinion on the Cheeto Man?
We are gonna hit a jingle we haven't got to use in so long. You ready?
Yeah.
Comment corner.
And I stole that harmony from Jacob Collier.
Really? Oh, Grammy winner.
Yeah, I made that jingle and was heard a part of his song, was oh, it's so beautiful. And so I just took those harmonies and made Comment Corner. Please don't sue us, Jacob.
Not to be a hater, but I don't like his music.
No, it's fine.
That's so rude.
I think,
Why did I say that?
I think he's really intelligent and interesting, but I agree his music doesn't fully capture me. It captures me in its intricacies, but not necessarily in its emotive, he's more of a technical musician, it seems, than an artistic musician.
So
I mean to say, sorry.
Look up Jacob Collier if you don't know who we're talking about.
I love his first album actually, but they're mostly covers.
But he's very a bum bum it's Jason Mraz adjacent, but people really like it.
Yeah, people might say that he is a musical genius technically. When it comes to he knows so much about music theory. And a lot of his songs are beautiful, and he loves to layer thousands and thousands of voices and layers of instruments and stuff.
It's Charlie Puth adjacent.
Yeah.
And he also does that TikTok thing where there's the 4 people in the kitchen and they're harmonizing and they're Shannon. And I'm always just this is just not going to lead to
I mean, he's just a little corny, but that's okay. I think he accepts that he's just a cheese ball.
Yeah.
And something I do love, sometimes he'll just take someone else singing or someone talking and harmonize to it. And I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
but
I'm a hater.
Craig's
wow.
a hater.
Yeah.
Should we get into our first quest?
Yeah.
Sean? Okay.
Hi, Mitch and Greg. Thank you for everything over the last 9 years. I sometimes have to remind myself that we're not actually friends, but you've been a part of my life through so many changes. My name is Mackenzie. I live in Minnesota, and I know you two have talked about becoming parents one day, and I was curious, from a science perspective, are there any parenting styles that you would take on yourself, or parenting styles that you see your parents had parented you by and have influenced who you are today? thank you for all the work that you guys do.
Whoa.
Aw, thank you.
That was
really sweet. We are your friends for real.
Yo, that's
Thanks for listening.
intense. Like I've like organized these a long time ago that I'm like, whoa, yeah, parenting styles.
Yeah. Okay. I think something I am interested to see where we'll land on because our families are so different.
But that's why we're together.
Yeah, and also it's a more contemporary way that I see a lot of our friends. This is not about like raising children, but doing, what is it called? Like sleep training.
Oh.
A lot of, because
we're sleep training.
I know, but like my cousin, if she's listening, who I think is one of the coolest and smartest people in the world, was like, I'm not sleep training. They let their kids, obviously their kids end up sleeping around the same time every day, but the way she was so relaxed about it, and I'm just like, they're the best parents and have the cutest kids. I'm like, it doesn't, so if you don't know, sleep training is obviously like, not forcing, but making your kid go to bed and have their naps at the exact same time every day. And
they like, I think at the beginning, sometimes they will cry, but you don't go comfort them because they will learn to self-soothe, and you create a consistent sleep schedule. And yes, our child will be sleep trained because I just know like I will need to sleep. It'll be about me knowing when I can sleep.
Yeah, I can understand the benefit of it, but I see also like the strained structure it sometimes imposes, and not being able to be flexible with where like your kid coming out with you, or like your life is then wrapped around their schedule. However, I also understand then you're guaranteed to have your own time, and you can say, I know by 7 p.m. I get to have my evening, versus like being unsure and just spending all my day like in and out with the kids. So I see both sides.
Essentially, like we're not parents yet, and we're gay guys, so it's like hard, like no womb in sight, and we're just like, it's just who knows, but we're trying, not by coming in each other, that doesn't make we're trying, but it's not working. But I think it's just always thinking about what part of yourself was fucked up by your parents and trying to like
totally, that's what I've been thinking a lot.
But then you probably overcorrect and then just fuck them up a different way. But for me, that means like being a little bit more like, I feel extremely privileged. I think I have quite amazing parents who like, even when I reflect, I'm like, they went to like parenting like seminars and classes. Like I remember once a therapist bringing up Barbara Coloroso, and I was like, oh yeah, my parents would like buy tickets to her like parenting thing. So like they're
putting in their work. Yeah,
and like an interesting way that I kind of want to keep that like.
Like what's
I
the
do want to read about like
around?
Yes, like the ideas of parenting. Like now everyone doesn't spoon feed their kid. They like grab a sweet potato and watch the kid like eat. Like I'm going to do those things because I think it's one of my favorite things about living is learning new things. Yeah. And I think as a parent, that's what I will be interested in. But I think for my kids, it's like weirdly want to like praise them more. Like I think my parents were really worried about me being like a bragger and like this sort of like, because I think I am quite exuberant and obnoxious. They were probably like, fuck, we need to like chill this guy out. But I think like in a backwards way, it made me more fucked. It's like, if you just like if you just like praise your kid enough, they might not seek out attention or whatever in the way that maybe they thought I was. So I would just be making sure like, sometimes with the kid, if they're like doing something and they're wanting your praise, it feels like an instinct, like an adult thing to be like, no, but like, this is why that other person also did really well. It's like, no, just like validating. I want to like make sure my kid feels really validated, even though I might feel uncomfortable with it. And then I probably won't even do that.
It's funny because like on the surface, mine's like the opposite, but I do want my kid to feel validated. Obviously, I think I like the trauma I have to unbreak. And obviously like with your kids, a lot of people are, if you're thinking about it, you're trying to undo the things that were challenging for you. It's like, I want to make sure that they don't think that external validation is the important thing.
Interesting, yeah.
But that doesn't mean like being validated still matters. You can't deny that like every being needs to feel validated, but knowing and also learning how to find your own validation, I think is like so important.
And also like the idea
I want my kid to just know they're amazing.
Yes, that's so funny because I'm like, I want my kid to like, I want that too, but I know I'm just going to tell my kid they're not amazing. No, that's not true. Okay, like I think in this realm of parenting, like to simplify it based on like, to speak for you, but like the way we think it is like, if something went wrong, my parents to me would say, "What did you do, Greg?" And if something went wrong for you, your parents would sort of say the other person, like blame the other person, whereas they would blame me. Like, what's the middle ground of that is what I would want to do with the kid. Making sure they took responsibility, but also allowing them the space to be like, no, that was really hard for you. And like, you might have done something, but the other person did too. Yeah. I think we are like extremes in that specific area of blame.
For sure. I'm like reading an amazing book right now called Finding Meaning in the
Finding Nemo?
Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life. Okay. It's really great. And I think something interesting it pointed out is like how hard it can be when parents realize like their kids aren't just projections for them to fix their own trauma, and like your kid might have fully different interests and fully different ideas of the world.
And a whole different personality.
Different beliefs. And that I think I do want to emphasize, not that my parents didn't let me know, like they were supportive and let me know I could do anything I wanted to do, but I think internally I didn't believe that I could be not conforming to the expectations of the society and the world, which I think a lot of people deal with. And I think I want to make sure that my kid knows that they can follow their own heart and like be themselves in a different way. I think that will be that will be the trauma I can, because it's like a trauma to release where you're like allowing someone else to be themselves. Of course, you want to provide support and structure, but I think that will be important for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Whereas I do really think my parents gave me that. They really let me know that being yourself is so important.
That's why you're an absolute freak.
Yeah, like, no, I'm just like, that's not the whole thing. And also, like, this is from Housewives. I never thought I'd be that gay guy. But it's like,
don't bring kids into it.
Yeah, don't bring kids into it. No, but they were like in a recent episode, like, all the goal is of parenting is to be a parent who your kid can come to talk to you about anything. In this case, it was sex and drugs. And I do feel like a boomer, like our parents' generation, that's just not what was being told.
How we were raised.
Yeah. And so I was like, that's an interesting, more like...
Or it's easier said than done, maybe. Maybe our parents wanted it, but it's like...
easier said than done. But it's a cool thing for me to think about, that I'll be like, oh, I will be trying to make decisions so that my kid feels like they can come to me about those things. I think that's a very modern concept that I do believe the parents I know are creating for their kids. Like an open, like... And I was like, if that's the goal, that's something I'm going to have to work on. And I want to be that type of parent while obviously creating boundaries. Yeah. And being like, oh my God, really complicated.
Yeah, I think
great question.
Like we don't know
we have no idea
of it. I think as we get further into this, we'll be doing more research about it and maybe have a more clear like idea around the like psychological philosophies we might actually be following.
Oh God!
Right now, I'm just like, I can't think about this. I'm still dealing with myself.
Yeah, which is why I think you should have a kid. But anyways, I also like, if we end up having a kid, this whole podcast is going to become like the science of parenting lives, and y'all will have
You'll be along for the ride. All right, moving on.
Yeah, wow. It's just like, okay, sorry, if you bring up Super Bowl things to like me, I go crazy. That's why that was 27 minutes.
That's fine.
Sorry, it's like the parenting. I'm like, oh yeah, that was quick. Next.
Moving on.
Yeah, it's like raising absolute kids. I'm like, oh yeah, well.
Okay, we have a next note by James.
Hey boys, I was just listening to your podcast about the projectile vomiting over the holidays, and that actually happened to me twice. I don't usually do that, but like, yeah, Christmas Eve, I think I was just threw up, like, bleh. Didn't see it coming, don't know why it happened, totally fine otherwise. And then it happened like again. I think I was just eating too much, but I don't know. Maybe it was a strange new disease.
I mean, it probably was.
No, okay. I'm like, y'all, it's norovirus.
Yeah, like it probably was a virus if it's not a problem you've had.
Well,
before.
norovirus is back, y'all. That's what we were talking about on that podcast. But I'm back in school doing my master's, so I'm around groups of people a lot, and people drop like flies, come back, and I'm always like, oh, I don't know. I love knowing about people's infections and diseases. Like, it's just so interesting. Okay. And they're all just like, I don't know, I shit myself and barf for 24 hours and was fine. I'm like, norovirus. Yeah. Like, it's here. It's in southwestern Ontario. Like,
I feel like it doesn't, not that it's not here now, but I feel like there was like a month window where even our friends and stuff were getting it. I haven't heard about it in a while.
But I've heard about it last week.
Probably a way.
Twice. 2 people. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
Like, it was last week that 2 people were gone, came back to school, told me that.
And so you're like, yeah, if it's happening within 24 hours, unless you got like food poisoning, which is also like from virus or bacteria, then yeah, you probably had norovirus.
And I think it's a fun. It's like
I did not get
that
it,
it's a
thank
fun one. I've had
freaking God.
norovirus twice.
You have?
Yeah.
How did you know? Like in university?
Yeah. Well, it's very specific. It's very shitting and barfing through the hole in your legs while shitting.
Are you being honest?
Yes, because your body. It's like
You did
boom.
both. I've never done both at the same time. You actually have?
Yeah, I'm a double. I love a double. I love a double.
So crazy.
It is
I don't-
crazy.
I kind of don't believe.
Why don't you believe me? Why would I lie about that?
Barfed through
Yes.
your crotch.
Yes. Okay.
Whilst diarrhea.
Whilst diarrheaing, yes.
Wow.
And it's like you're in such a state of sickness that it's not even like you're like, oh my God, gross. You're kind of like,
You just gotta
you're
do
actually
it.
like, great. The bowl's
Get
there,
it out.
perfect. Because it's
Yeah.
like, I need a place for both of these things. But it was in university when I was literally in the dorms at the University of Guelph, which on the news had norovirus this year, like en masse.
Yeah, like
So,
1,000 people or something had it.
No, it was 200 and
Okay.
like
Yeah,
something.
we said it on the spot before. There was like hundreds.
Well,
of people.
honestly, that was what was reported. I'm sure there's lots of other people who didn't go to the doctor who just shit and pissed out of their ass and mouth and weren't part of the 256. My point is, I had it in Guelph exactly the way people did this year because it travels so easily. The toilets are disgusting when you're in university. Like everyone's either drinking,
and you're also
sharing
in
drinks.
such close proximity. Yeah,
You're young. You're not necessarily like taking care of yourself. You're like, ooh, macaroni again for lunch. Like I was just so sick, and I really could not believe how healthy, sick, healthy. It was so fast. Like that's the thing about norovirus. If you have it, it's when you're like just
burns through your system quickly.
yes.
And then,
Like I remember the next day being like, did I shit and barf through my own? Like, because now I'm absolutely skipping across campus, hungry as fuck because my body's empty. Like,
I'm not excited to like. I feel like one of my fears around having kids is how often we're gonna get sick and how much more likely catching one of those viruses is. Because we live like pretty isolated and I can work from home and all these things. I feel like I can escape most of these like little blips in society.
yeah, kids are like so gross. Like when I look at them, I'm like,
and I don't barf that often. I really like even just thinking of barfing, like it is so visceral to me that I am thinking about the last time I did because I had food poisoning, and it actually is
it's awful.
just one of the most awful like physical experiences.
I mean, it feels good after at least.
Yeah, but it's so okay. We don't need to talk about it. It's pretty gross.
Yeah, everyone's like,
yeah, it's just so intense.
anyways, you might have had norovirus or ate too much food, but I've
It's
never.
true. Maybe you did, or you could have got food poisoning, or like had something happen to your food.
Also, like as someone who does eat insane amounts of food that I get commented on a lot, I never. What do you mean? Like just people are sometimes like, okay,
so
like
much food.
what? Like I'm like seconds. Like at your family Thanksgiving when everyone's like, whoa, he's getting seconds. I'm like, yeah, you just made 7,000 pounds of turkey. Anyways, I always just sit in that pain and like fart. Like I've never like gotten to the point of being so full to throw
Coming
up.
out mouth.
No, like it's going through me, but it's
Yeah.
like I'm not feeling good. But
Yeah, I don't know if I've eaten so much that I've thrown up either.
no. And I just think like I can eat so much. That's when you got to smoke a joint and let that stomach
But then you just
distend.
want more. All right, next cue.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Mitch and Greg. This is Devin here with my husband, Mayank.
Hello.
We are longtime
Whoa,
fans. We're a young STEM couple. We're from the US, and we're actually expecting our first child. We're living in a really nice city with a lot of diversity. And something we've been talking about that we wanted to mention is that we have a really interesting episode idea for you. And we think it'd be interesting, especially with Greg having been a teacher.
Okay, so in US, a lot of people say that we should move to another town where the schools have better, quote unquote, better ratings. We know, however, that usually whiter and wealthier towns have higher ratings, while the schools in diverse areas tend to have lower ratings.
And we're a mixed couple, and diversity and exposure to children in different financial situations is really important to us for our kid. So we want to know, do better ratings actually mean better schools, or does it just mean they're whiter and wealthier?
That's it. That's the episode idea for you to just dig deeper into the education system.
Here in the US, yeah. Anyway, hope y'all are doing well. Love the pod. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. That's a great question.
Also,
and we
like-
should like do a deeper dive.
Yeah, we're gonna
on
do it, like,
philosophy.
that's a- okay, I'm
But
gonna
I'd love
add
to
that.
just like give our like non-scientific thoughts.
Also, to start, it's like to self-identify as a STEM couple. It's like, oh,
I guess we're a STEM.
I know. I
couple.
want to start being like, oh yeah, that's my
We're a STEM
boyfriend.
couple.
We're a STEM couple. Like, no big deal. STEM couple. Sorry.
so cute.
Like, it's so cute. Like, I kind of was like, what did they say? Stan couple.
They could be that too. Okay,
You go first because I'm adding this to episode ideas.
Well, okay. I feel like you will have a more educated opinion on this, but I will say that I personally agree and think that the exposure to a larger mix of backgrounds, whether that be ethnic or economic, or just like, you know, being from different parts of the country, is more important to me and what I see in my kids. Obviously, there's always like stress and a struggle around people. We live in a capitalist society and everyone wants their kid to have the best chance to like live a life where they can live comfortably. And it's whether or not these, because I don't exactly know how the schooling ratings work in America, but you know, there's lots of studies that show, okay, of course, like affluent kids do better because they have the affluent support behind them. Is it because they went to a better school or because they have more money, more connections, parents who were able to like dedicate way more resources to getting them tutors and putting them in all these extracurriculars and stuff? It's all so convoluted that I don't know. I just think like to be a better whole person, it's better to like get exposure to different kinds of people. If you're great parents, you'll obviously be engaged in your kids' life and be able to provide them opportunities outside that or engagement in other ways. Obviously, economics is always a limiting barrier for people, and that's the saddest part. And I know Greg has talked about like in Toronto how often the wealthiest neighborhood schools are subsidized the least compared to like the less affluent neighborhoods. Is that true?
yes.
And I think that's like
in
an
the Toronto
amazing,
District School
Yeah, I think
Board.
that's like an
Yeah.
amazing method to try and balance this out, because that is sad. Like if in America, for example, you're sending your kid to a lower rated school and that means that there's less resources and they're not going to have access to the same things, well, then of course that sucks if they're not getting to be exposed to like high tech computers to learn programming and to like be modernized by like what are useful skills to have these days.
Yeah,
but-
because they also like my understanding of the U.S. education system is that it now doesn't exist. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But like literally, like get like Allah. But like I feel like it's very state specific, and so it's like it's hard to talk broadly about education systems because they change so much. So for example, I know a lot about the Toronto District School Board because it's what I was educated in. Also grew up in Toronto, and like so it's
You have a
even
lot of
city
experience.
specific.
Yeah.
Like school boards. We were talking to
Yeah.
our friend who's a teacher, and because was a teacher and obsessed with it, I always ask her how it's going, and she's like, they don't do exams now in grade 9 and 10 in her school board.
Right.
Like that's a pretty big decision that was made, but it's not happening in Toronto necessarily. Right. So to speak on like this rating system, I don't know what like that actually means.
Right. The rating is it a rating of their grades or of the teachers' qualifications or of the school's resources? Like it could be a lot of things.
Yeah, but one thing I know is that I went to a school that was not very diverse. It was mostly white, and
Like your high school, you mean?
yes, and it's
That you grew up in, not
that
that
I
you
grew
taught
up in. Sorry, not that I taught in. This is like the one I grew up in, and it was very like such a great school and everyone does well. And it's like, yeah, all the like popular kids from my school literally work at their dad's bank. Like it's very like, yeah, they got a job, but they literally were the most average, intelligent people. Like,
And I was just gonna say, like, let's not forget that there's so many cases of us finding out that rich people cheat for their kids. Like those
Yeah.
examples where they're like getting them to like get fake grades and stuff to get into good universities, or like having help and working with the inside of these institutions. So there's like layers of what it means to be affluent and what that affords you.
yeah, like what I would say is like, my point is like from my experience, then moving into becoming a teacher and teaching in different schools, I'm getting there, but it's like the people who now have jobs where they make a lot of money were doing a lot of drugs, skipping class, and not good at school. Like they have a really great life now because of their white
Because
and
of their parents.
economic privilege. Yes. And there were a lot of other kids who became doctors and became really successful because they worked really hard. Some affluent parents, some not. So it's like, I think that this school is considered a good school because of the way that people like have a high university, like they go to university and they get good jobs. But I really am like, that has so much more to do
with their circumstances,
white privilege, economic privilege, and their circumstances through their parents. Like I am so viscerally aware of that. So then when I start doing my teaching degree and start teaching in the schools in Toronto that have the socioeconomic income of the parents is completely different, and there is more diversity because a lot of them are like new immigrants. What I was really aware of was like the respect and the effort amongst those students was so much higher than the white kids at the good school. So like, even though of course there were so many negative impacts of their poverty for a lot of these kids, one thing that always stuck out to me was like when a supply teacher came in the school that I grew up in, if that supply teacher was not white, they would be made fun of. These kids had the audacity to be extremely rude. And it was like really scarring to watch and really awful. And it was just like an environment where this racism and negativity flourished and was unquestioned. When I would watch a supply teacher come into the schools where I was the student teacher, I would be so worried for them. These kids were so respectful. There was not a part of them that felt like ruining that supply teacher's day. I watched this happen a lot, and I was like, oh my God, like I wish I went to this school, or those kids needed, my peers and needed to be checked, and these kids didn't need to be checked in that department. And I think if you were a white kid, which there were at these schools, or you would be learning a lot in those moments. You wouldn't be enabled to be a really, really horrible person. So it's like, those are teaching moments that cannot come out of a school with whatever. And then I'd also say the teachers at these schools were just as good as the teachers at our school. Like the teaching profession is very regulated in Ontario in a way that's like, you don't get better teachers in public schools one with rich parents and one with not. So that's kind of like a nice thing to know. Some of the best teachers that I was inspired by were from these schools. So it's like, I don't know how your rating system works, but I don't think you should look into whether teachers are like flocking to the high rated schools or not. But I genuinely think so many kids in my high school lacked an education from the lack of diversity that as a parent, I want my kid to be around different people, because I think the teaching moments you get from that are so much more profound than whatever these rating systems might be looking at, which might be so influenced by the parents' economic income anyways.
And I think it goes back to like, what are your values? Going back to even us talking about raising kids, you know what your values are in raising kids, and getting raised in a world where all you're talking about is your success and your economic outcome, and how going to the best school is going to get you the best job, is going to get you the best thing, is going to get you the biggest house. Like a lot of people are realizing that makes people really depressed and sad. Of course, everyone wants to be stable. I'm not trying to minimize like why we want our kids to feel like they get a good job so they can live a good life, but like living is so much more than that. There are a lot of people who have very little who are happy and content, and they know their inner worth. And so I think it just like, if your values as parents are around diversity and exposure, then I think that is your answer. You know, like even if the answer is these higher rated schools technically get you a better job, like it matters what you actually value, I think.
And I think I also like, sometimes people are obviously worried about their kids like being around drug use or bad influences. It's like that's where the rich people are. It's like, do you know what you need to do to like do drugs? You need to have money, and you need to have time, and you need to, and I'm not saying that people who like are,
it happens
are
everywhere.
poor like don't do drugs and might have the same issues, but is there
Sorry, that weird. Sorry, guys, that's my phone through the Bluetooth.
It was like also like a really intense thing that I'm saying, and I was like, oh my God, that's so scary.
Sorry.
I just hate the way that white people get away with drug use without it impacting something like the school's rating. It's like, oh my God, the kids at my school were doing so many drugs. They were dealing so many drugs. And like, there was such racist fucking shit happening about drug dealing at our school because sometimes people would come from other schools who didn't happen to be white and deal drugs, and all of a sudden the parents are in uproar. I'm like, I know your fucking kid is the drug dealer of our school, but they are not willing. It's just that type of shit pisses me off. So I've seen it as a student and I've seen it as a teacher. Kids in high school, they're going to experiment with drugs and they're going to have to get it from somewhere, and these systems will be built up. But don't lie to yourself that all the rich kids aren't a part of that system just because they have the money and access to stay out of jail and also not have the like police brutality towards them. It's like, that's something that is just like, your kid can easily end up doing drugs whether or not you're in any school. And in fact, sometimes I think more drugs and more alcohol use is happening in these white, like affluent schools where the people then get a good job because their dad's a fucking banker. Anyways, that's that on that. Okay.
Maybe time for like a one or two more?
Just do this one. And then we're done.
Okay, hold on. You're pointing to this.
Yeah, it's just dragging me. And it's like, good Lord.
Okay, ready from Diana.
Hi guys, I'm a PhD candidate in molecular and cellular biology, and you guys killed me last week, especially Greg, who kept saying CRISPR-Cas9 instead of CRISPR-Cas9. It's CRISPR!
Okay, I was doing, okay, because people,
It was Greg, right? Not me.
No, it was me. I listened to it after and was like, I want to absolutely off myself. It's time to end it all. Okay, so CRISPR is like the thing that most people just say, but I'm always trying to be all like molecular biology, right? So I'm like, no, it's actually CRISPR-Cas9. And then I get confused and I start doing Casper-Cas9.
It's actually been a secret sponsorship by Casper, and Greg loves Casper.
Oh wait, actually that reminds me of Casper mattresses.
And we're huge fans of Casper the Friendly Ghost. So there's just a lot going on.
No, I'm so sorry. And when I re-listened, I was actually like, that's embarrassing. I am a horrible person. If you were doing your PhD in biology, you'd be like, I want both of these people to absolutely.
Well, you guys have to know, like, ultimately, we are stupid.
Yes,
like, if
that is important to remember.
If you like believe us about, no, you can believe us. I don't know. Just every now and then, I'm like, be careful. Be careful when you.
Okay,
listen
what
to this.
you're actually trying to say is that we are just disseminating information that we find interesting, and we really do want ASAP Science to be a place where people don't think we know everything. That's not me trying to defend this. This is embarrassing, and I am like actually such an idiot. But what you're trying to say is like, that sounded a little intense. Like, don't believe us.
Oh, I
It's
was
like,
just joking.
No,
I'm just
I know.
trying to make a joke about like, of course we're coming to all of our even YouTube episodes and like podcasts and
we
TikToks,
hope that comes through.
like coming with research, but like we live in a world where of course we're flawed humans and we're doing our best. But,
and I do believe we think there's value in that, because when you listen to pop science or other science podcasts or science YouTube channels, they come at it with like a very British proper like
I know everything.
I know everything, and that irks us. So we are trying to make our
this
whole
was kind of the genesis
concept
of this podcast was, can we show our personality more, because our videos are very like scripted, trying to be succinct, and as a result it comes off as we know this already, or we know everything.
We don't want people to think that, because I think it leaves room to be more interested in science. I think science is so rigid and people get so fearful of that, and scientists, especially academics who I've worked with and are working with now, can be very challenging people who don't allow that vulnerability and humor and even like sense of self to come through, which I think is really important. Again, I'm not defending it. I really am an idiot and I shouldn't have called it Casper-Cas9. But I think that like broader question is like, we don't want people to think that we know everything. And that's kind of what this podcast is supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's why we talked for like 74 minutes about like Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance. It's like, I don't fucking know. Okay. So we have another call-in question episode next week. And then after that, we're going to be talking about fiber. So getting back to the science.
We like to do this when we're going to be away for a week. So we were like, let's just record.
Okay. Wow. Absolutely. Unveil
I'm just
everything.
being honest. Like that's why we're doing some question episodes, because it's like we run away. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we get back, we'll be doing a fiber episode. But next week, you'll have more of your voice notes being answered. So is this the end? Thanks for listening to this episode, and we will see you next week. Bye.